Welcome back, everyone, to VGVN 3. We just saw probably my favorite series of the tournament so far with Neirea versus Hypes, and we saw quite the explosive finish with Leroy, but the game before that was definitely the memorable, as there was a really cool freeze mage, or not even freeze mage, it's Hypes mage, versus the Miracle Rogue player. That was a really fun game to see. So if you missed that, make sure you check out the VODs at youtube.com/OneNationOfGamers. Now, our next series, PV, you said it was Neirea versus Savjz, and this is an important one for Savjz because if he wins this, he is in a really good spot to advance in his group, and depends on his score, in fact. He might be even almost guaranteed sealing away unless Hyped is able to really one-sided defeat him. So we're going to see if these two players can really position themselves well. Neirea, I feel like he's in a lock almost to advance top two, but things could still go disastrously wrong if he loses 0-3 here.
Yeah, for sure. I hope we get to see Savjz's Paladin deck, which we haven't seen yet. It's the only Paladin in the whole competition. And, I really like to see it being played. So let's hope we get to see that.
All right, let's hop into the classes choice and see what these guys have banned. It seems Hunter has been the choice for both of them so far, and for good reason. Once again, Hunter is really strong against handlock, so you want to take that away. And Savjz has been one of the players for a long time who's not only playing classes like handlock or even Hunter, but also one of the first players to ban Hunter, and for good reason. Now everyone's kind of caught on to why, and at the time people were still banning Miracle Rogue. So it looks like we're going to lead off with Handlock versus the Ramp Druid. How do you like this matchup for either class here, PV?
Well, I think it's a little bit better for the Handlock because its creatures are a little bit bigger and it has good removal spells, though Savjz only runs one Siphon, which is unusual. Most people run two. So that could be a strike against him in this matchup. But yeah, your creatures are just a little bit bigger and you have... your hero power is so much better than Druid's hero power in this matchup. And both players are trying to play big things. You're going to have, 3-4 more cards to work with. And your big things might even come into play faster than theirs do because, they're mountain giants and you get your Handful and, your Drakes are also powerful. Druid could definitely win. It has a lot of the elements that the Warlock deck has, which is just big guys. He has a Black Knight, which his opponent does not, so that card's huge. Savjz will probably have to watch for that, maybe not on his big guys sometimes. But yeah, I think though either person could win, it also has Big Game Hunter, but yeah, even though either person could win, and I think Neirea's Druid deck is actually well suited up as far as Druid decks go to beat Warlock. I think Warlock has the edge.
All right, with that said, let's go into the first game and see if PV, his predictions kind of give Savjz a little bit of the edge here, but like we said, there are swing cards. There's Big Game Hunter that can stabilize. You have Twilight Drake, or you have Keeper of the Grove for Twilight Drakes. You silence and reduce it to the 1 attack or the 1 health, and then able to pick it off. And look how it matches up. He does have the perfect response for now, but Savjz always does have the ability to draw into a Mountain Giant in the following turns.
Dude, there's his Wild Growth. The ever-present Wild Growth. It's almost Neirea's hero power at this point.
Hero power gain 1 mana crystal for the rest of the game, or 1 every single turn.
That'd be a good hero power.
That's actually is a hero power for one of the next Rammus's clash challenges. It's like gain 1 mana crystal, draw a card, or something equivalent to that.
Yeah, here we're probably gonna see. Well, the downside to playing a turn 3 Drake is that you can't play a turn 4 Mountain Giant. But that's still fine, especially because Neirea has no board yet, so even if he plays the Keeper, you just end up trading.
I must safeguard.
So it's not like, he's going to keep it and attack it with a 1-1. Oh, so he has to innervate to a hero power here. So his innervate is basically a 2-4. So, which is a good turn for him, but... could potentially... it's going to stall that scenario from being played by 2 turns.
Yeah, definitely. Now, Savjz did use his coin, which, in a way, kind of gimped his ability to play anything this turn. But it was a risk I was willing to take, considering the factors that you just mentioned. You wouldn't lose to Twilight Drake unless he specifically has 2 cards, Keep the Grove plus either Innervate or like a weird card like Claw. Oh, well, Savjz also draws Twilight Drake number 2, as well as the ability to play Mountain Giant. Interesting 2 choices here. You like playing the Mountain Giant here or Twilight Drake for a little bit more health?
It depends on. No, yeah, I think the fact that the Mountain Giant threatens the Sledge Belcher, it just means you should probably play that.
Well, phew.
Otherwise, the
Good
Drake.
thing you didn't play the Drake, because guess what just came in the hand of Neirea?
Yeah, definitely. And yeah, it's actually looking good for Neirea so far. But you know, the Handlock deck is very good at falling behind early on and then just dominating the late game. So Neirea is considering whether he wants to Wild Growth to play Scenarios next turn, or whether he just wants to hold that until he has 10 mana so he can use it to draw an extra card. Well, he chooses to play Wild Growth. You don't see a lot of Wild Growths into 9 mana. So, you know, this has to, you know, Savjz has to look at it and think, well, he wants to use 9 mana next turn. You know, because it's actually a good, big commitment. You're giving up a card that you're going to get in 2 turns to be able to get 1 extra mana next turn. So,
right,
Scenarios is kind of telegraphed.
I must safeguard.
Or,
There's
you know,
Telegraph,
spells.
but he's going to have to wait in line because this Keeper of the Grove is going to cut and try and reduce it once more. And Savjz is just like, really? Does he have both Keeper of the Groves perfectly lined up? I mean, he's got 3 cards, or he got 5 cards rather, and he used 3 of them immediately this turn to be able to kind of push through. Now, Savjz doesn't have immediate threat here, but looks like he picked up something right off the top, and it is a Sludge Belcher. And I guess the good news is that there's no keepers for this card.
Yeah. And, you know, here he cannot hero power unless he wants to Soulfire as well. Otherwise, the card will just be gone. Because he already has 9.
Oof.
Feel nature's wrath.
All right, well, as much as this is a really intimidating board, you're always kind of mindful of the board clears of what
yeah.
Handlock can do.
Yeah, he does have power overwhelming plus Shadow Flame. So all he needs to do is draw a minion that he can actually play.
An Ironbeak Owl.
Oh, he drew
Or
one.
in this case,
but
a Farseer.
it does not kill Scenarios. He had to be Ancient Watcher to kill Scenarios. Yeah, he might have to just do that and... Yeah. Okay, that also works.
Alright, Soulfire's going to discard Molten Giant, and thankfully it's not something like Ragnaros, but he needs other big threats to kind of follow this up on. Now, it all comes down to whether or not Savjz can also sense if his opponent's running combo, and whether or not he's worried about it, but also the fact that now that Molten Giant has been discarded, Neirea might feel more aggressive with this Druid Claw here. It's all about weighing your options, right? Like, if you discard 1 Molten Giant, are you more likely to push in for damage here?
For the wild.
Are you more likely to have had 2 originally? Because that makes it more likely you'll discard 1.
And that's a tough question.
Yeah, I don't... Yeah, I don't know. I think, well, here he could also kind of board clear. He did draw the Ancient Watcher a turn too late, unfortunately. But, you know, clearing that ward, Neirea will still get 2 Death Rattle minions.
Many possibilities.
He could clear or taunt up. I mean, he doesn't really have that many great targets to use the Defender of Argus anyways. So he can put up a 5/6 and a 4/4. Might even better just to taunt up Ancient Watcher over the Farseer. But if you feel like you're going to die, to just maybe the 1 copy of the combo by any chance, it's better to taunt as many as you can.
Yeah, I think I like taunting as many as I can.
My shield for Argus.
You know, and even, you know, it makes it a 4/4, so it makes it resistant to at least the 3/1 because just swing on it.
All right.
And yeah, trying to, you know, increase his options before he decides what he's gonna do, and draws a Wrath, so good thing he played that first.
Yeah, this is excellent. Now I believe this allows him to go for a board clear. And what's important is that he's also removing every single card, so that way Shadow Flame is not going to be as potent as it could be if he left up a minion.
Yeah, for sure.
Oh, wow. Never mind. Oh, just kidding. You end up going for it last second decision. Yeah, if you leave it up, then Power Overwhelming Shadow Flame is a clear.
Yeah, so now he denies the possibility of He could still get Shadow Flame because he can play that Faceless Manipulator, but that's a lot of resources to kill, you know, two guys that one of them is a token, one of them replaces itself, and one of them drew 2 cards.
Sometimes you do what you gotta do.
Yeah.
Well, I wonder if Savjz felt like he should have used Mortal Coil on the 2-1 just in case to slide it into the mana. But I guess now it's too late because he can't kill off the 1/2 token. It's just 1 damage.
Yeah, and you know, we see that Neirea is really worried about, you know, he's considering whether he can just go for it and risk Molten Giant, and decides that he can't. His opponent can't play Molten Giant anyway at this point. He has 10 mana, so just make him have it. 1 is already gone.
Alright, looking like a Ragnaros turn to me here. And it's gonna have to hit one of these 2 bigger minions.
Well, he's actually just dead, right? Because his opponent has Force of Nature. Yeah, so it doesn't matter what it hits.
Damage. So even if it hits Lotheb, Neirea has the guarantee. That's the best outcome for Savjz, but he still has it. And if it wasn't enough insurance, he also has Swipe. Now, one thing I kind of want to ask is, wouldn't you rather conceal the Force of Nature and use Druid Claw and Swipe? Because then you can kind of leave this mystery of whether or not you have Force of Nature and Savage Roar in your deck.
That's true, but also by playing it, your opponent might just live in mortal fear of it when he shouldn't. So, you know, maybe by playing it, your opponent starts thinking that you have 2 and plays around the combat at all times when you only have 1, and the likelihood that you get both in your hand is pretty small. So maybe he wants his opponent playing around that. He thinks it's actually detrimental.
Ah, yeah. I guess feeding your opponent information to put him in fear, that's kind of clever too. I like that approach. Paladin going to be immediately queued up here for Savjz. Now, Control Paladin is often deemed the father of Control because of what you can do with equality and how you can just reset the board. Your late game scaling is really powerful with Tyrion Fortering as one of your main win conditions. And it's just such a strong overall deck that can handle Control matchups very potently because you have a lot of ways to disarm big heavy cards with Peacekeepers and even an extra humility with Kodo.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. You know, I think a lot of this matchup is going to hinge on how much Savjz can get out of his equalities. They're by far his most important cards. And if he can get a lot of value out of it, then it should be good for him. But if Neirea can maybe maneuver around it and force him to play in moments which he's not comfortable with, and eventually get rid of both of them, then he just flood the board, and then it might be good for Neirea. So definitely the card of the matchup here is equality.
All right, let's go into game 2 and see if Savjz can turn this around. I have a feeling that this game might take a while, as Paladin games tend to do that. They're one of the slowest decks in the game because they don't have a direct win condition other than something like Tyrion. And even so, it's one of those situations where you're often holding it because you're trying to play around removal, and it's just more of a trump card. Meanwhile, you're trying to rely on your hero power to just kind of tickle away your opponent and make removal really efficient. Look at Savjz's opening hand, by the way, though. He's got plenty of ways to handle the control in the late game, and some ways to remove some of the early threats with True Silver Champion.
Yeah, both players with super slow draws, which is to be expected in this matchup. You know, we're probably just going to see people trading hero power left and right. But one benefit that he drew Shade of Naxxramas. That's a card we don't often see in Control Paladin, but was probably going to be pretty good here. You know, he can either start crashing with it, and Neirea, you know, has to have an immediate removal spell, or just let it grow to very big amounts.
Yeah,
Which one do you think is going to do?
That's a 3-mana legendary killer. Like, you don't actually ever have to attack with this thing.
Yeah, because you know you're not going to win this matchup on life. You know you're going to win on board, so just waiting for it to grow out of control is, I think, the best strategy in this matchup. You know, in some other matchups it might be different, but if you're the Paladin, you know what your kill condition is, and it's not attacking for a 3 on turn 3. So one thing that I think is also interesting is that even though hero powers cancel each other, each turn that the Paladin manages to stick a hero power and the Druid does not, gives him a decently sized advantage. So if the Druid deck uses hero power and Paladin can't match, you lose nothing, you just get 1 armor. But if the Paladin deck manages to get ahead and use hero power many turns when you don't, then they get a sizable advantage.
All right, well, Savjz opts to go for the much slower play here of trying to draw cards as opposed to give up his Acolyte. That does open up his Shaded Naxxramas to get removed, but he's kind of saying, well, if you have Swipe or whatnot, most likely you can't deal with everything unless you have a little bit more. You have to like innervate out this Keeper of the Grove in order to deny the draws. But that's not going to be that big of a concern. Harrison Jones in the deck of Savjz, most likely going to come down here, considering that Harrison Jones is kind of useless anyways.
Yeah, much better than Dakota, which is both a smaller body and will have a use potentially next turn. So do you deny the card here, or do you just kill it outright? Hey, we denied the card because I think we don't really care about minions. You know, that 1/1 there is just not going to do a lot. It's only a 1/1. Your opponent not drawing a card is much more important.
Yeah, I can definitely agree here. Alright, second equality for Savjz. So, if it ever gets too hairy, the first one can be used. You just have to make sure not to give up your second equality too early into the game. Otherwise, it's just gonna... What, is there raining dollar bills over there, PV?
Yeah, I knocked the coin out, sorry.
Collecting that caster money already? I see.
Well, it's not dollars, it's reais coins.
Oh, gotcha.
They're worth a lot less, unfortunately.
Aw.
Yeah.
I mean, you guys still have really cool events that's going on with the Olympics and World Cup and all.
Yeah.
Savjz, by the way, doesn't have a direct answer to this Ancient of War. It would be really cool if he had saved something like the Humility, so that way he could have Kodoed it. But even then, you don't have to guarantee. In fact, he's going to use Equality immediately and try to just gain position on the board. And it's okay, I guess, because you get a full board clear. It's kind of like you healed your minion by having the 4/5, and now you're able to have the board presence.
Yeah, that's the dream scenario for Neirea, which is your opponent is using Equality to get rid of only one threat. Because you have more threats than he has Equalities by a lot. So if you can get a 1-for-1 like that, that's very good for you. So Savjz's turn was actually pretty insane. You know, he got rid of his opponent's board and played 2 big minions. But now Neirea followed up with an Ancient of War, and he's gonna spend his second Equality. You know, probably not. The moment he does that, he's in a lot of trouble. Because then Neirea knows he doesn't have any more. He can just flood the board. Wow. But now, passing the turn, yeah, Neirea, cannot commit everything he would want to. Not playing scenarios here, for example.
Yeah, but that's what's something good about these Death Rattle minions. As much as Control Paladin has been really powerful in the control matchups, it just gives you more resilience to things overall.
Yeah, definitely. And the tokens that are left are going to be good no matter what, because all your guys are turning to 1 toughness as well. So, if you have a big guy, you quality away as Ledge Belcher, then whatever you have left is going to trade with that 1/2 token. So definitely a problematic card for Paladins. And one which seems to be very, very present in this tournament. Almost everyone is running it in, the most varied decks. Druid, Hunter, Warlock, they all run Ledge Belcher.
I wonder.
He does have that Silencer in his hand, but I think he only runs 1. And, there are a lot of targets.
Yeah, I think keeping Spellbreaker for a situation where your opponent really probably won't be able to get really good value off it anyways, like a big Death Rattle, or in the off case that your opponent has like your Sarah or something and you use your second equality and you can't remove it. I think it's just important to keep the Spellbreaker in these control matches because it could be like the way you win. Like say you play Tyrion and he facelesses it, you can Spellbreaker, so that way it's like your trump card.
It's funny that you need a trump card to beat your own card, but yeah, that's how it goes.
Yeah.
Generally. Paladins, they don't fear anything except their own Tyrion getting stolen, so they never use that Spellbreaker. I've seen that a lot, actually. It's pretty interesting. So Neirea's going for pumps here, again. We've seen a lot more pumps this tournament than actual 2/2 taunts.
Oh my, Pyromancer allows him to basically punch through this little 3/1. But then how do you kind of time everything with it? Do you really want to use Consecration? Do you want to use Holy Light?
Yeah, you see, Equality here would, yeah. I wonder if Equality is better than Consecration. Oh, sorry, if Pyromancer is better than Consecration. This is basically saying he prefers having Consecration in hand over having Pyromancer in hand.
Yeah, he wants to take the board.
Unless he's playing low tab, in which case the 2 extra mana will make a difference. But yeah, if he's playing Sinjin, you know, he gets a minion out of it.
Reporting for duty.
And that's probably as good a target as you're gonna get. Well, other than Tyrion. So I guess you just save Black Knight for Tyrion. Yeah, you probably do. You have no other ways to answer it.
Because one thing that Paladin can do is answer threats one by one very effectively. So you have the ability to like Black Knight this or Peacekeeper one threat. So as much as you give up your second equality, you also can take Seize initiative on the board and then not have to worry too much because Ramp Druid's only playing one threat at a time anyways. So most likely you can use Choose Silver plus whatever you have at your disposal to take apart your opponent.
Yeah, he's gonna get use of that Consecration now. It was good seeing he saved that. It's much better in this spot than the Pyromancer would be.
Oh, absolutely. And now it's like up to Neirea to figure out if he wants to get this Black Knight value here, or if he wants to get Ancient of Lore and draw 2 cards. That sounds good to me.
Yeah, it seems better. If he hadn't drawn that, say he draws like a Nineveh, I think he just has to Black Knight there and accept that Tyrion is gonna be an issue.
Wow.
Because passing the turn here, just doing nothing, just seems way too bad. But yeah, luckily he drew that, and it was one of the best cards he could have drawn. Probably the best card.
Absolutely. Now he's up in the card count, at least by his holding. Although now Savjz does have a way to answer this without giving up too much of his board, and starts being able to get the hero powers in. Late game is where the hero power of Paladin really starts to shine, because you start stacking it, and then the damage really starts racking up over the course of turns.
Yeah, I mean, Druid can answer that with his own hero power, but again, every time that your opponent fails to do so, your board is getting better. Whereas you don't have the same pressure on you. Ooh, another one.
Second Ancient of Lore. This is the 2 back-to-back huge draws off at the beginning of the turn for Neirea to really start pulling away with it, and he's even have Thalnos and Swipe for the following turns in case you know, Savjz doesn't have the way to make his board resilient against the Spell Power Swipe.
Yeah, ooh, there's a Guardian of Kings. I think Savjz only plays 1 Guardian of Kings, which I also think is kind of unusual. Most people play 2, but yeah, has it now. Doesn't care much about the life game, but does care about the body a lot.
Let me think.
Yeah, the 5/6 presents quite the problem for most druids. They like 6 health is just floating at the hard to deal with stage. Even Spell Power Swipe doesn't really kill it.
Yeah, you have to hero power it after that, and you know that's not going to be possible with that taunt over there. Though Neirea does have a Wrath as well, so probably going to be able to do some
Oh
clearing.
man, yeah, Wrath with Spell Power Swipe clears most of this board. Look at this. This is not what Savjz wanted to see at all, because now this Thalnos also cycles. So he's going to be up in the card count pretty significantly. What a big turn of things. And look at what 2 Ancient of Lores do to make such a magnificent difference.
Yeah, and Thalnos is really being, you know, a key player. And in this game at least, it was probably the card. If Neirea wins this game, it will be because this was a Thalnos and nothing else.
Oh, put your faith in the light. Tyrion has arrived to the battlefield. And now Neirea doesn't... Oh, he has to Black Knight it, but then at the same time, you want to try to remove its hero power... Not the hero power, sorry. The weapon that he gives to the hero. So that way he doesn't get the weapon. But I guess this is what you've been saving Black Knight for the entire game.
They did Black Knight Harrison Jones. Yeah, now he's on, you know, a 2-turn clock.
Yeah,
he does have a lot of taunt guys in his hand, like a lot. But so yeah, his opponent does have the Spellbreaker. So if he has a way to remove the following taunt, then he's dead.
15 damage straight, and Savjz is going to start pressuring the board even more. Neirea has 2 taunts that he can play here.
Yeah, Neirea's in trouble here. If he plays his 2 taunts, he's just dead because his opponent spell breaks the Sledge Belcher. And oh no, he has to attack a token not to die. Okay, so he's not actually dead.
Yeah, he's not dead here. It requires a little bit extra for Savjz. Like he needs Spellbreaker plus something else.
Well, only if he attacks a token. Which I imagine he will.
Yes.
Yeah. So now, yeah, now Savjz can deal 3 damage to him. Put him at 1. And that's not gonna do it.
Yeah, well, Pyromancer isn't what he needed.
Yeah, I mean, if you can't get through this board right now, it's only gonna get harder. Because next turn he's gonna see a Lotep and another Druid of the Claw. Or maybe, you know, Druid and a Hillhar.
By the way, Neirea has combo. So if this board just keeps being resilient with taunts, say he has Druid of the Claw, his opponent can't push through, he has Sunwalker, his opponent can't push through, then maybe he can flip this around and burst Savjz and kill him. It's still a long shot, but just keep that in the back of your mind as these games or this turns start to develop, and maybe there's an opportunity for him to sneak back into it and win.
Yeah, so that's just saving his Spellbreaker for a turn in which, you know, he can Spellbreak and attack with his weapon. Just hoping his opponent doesn't have yet another taunt.
Wow, Keeper of the Grove. So he can start winning back the board and play stronger minions overall.
Yeah, has to play that taunt now, though.
Where shall I strike? I must safeguard land.
Yeah,
Wow,
now
this was
Savjz is in a lot of trouble here.
Yeah, killing off that that 3-2 was so big for the Keeper of the Grove because now he can't push through the remainder of the taunts. And this is very annoying for Savjz because he wanted to use his Ashspring to secure the game, but now instead he's back at square one trying to play catch up, and it's coming down to Fatigue Wars. But I feel like Druids is so far ahead on the board now that
there's no way it's
will
going to come
really
down
start
to
increasing the power level significantly.
Yeah, with the combo in Neirea's hand, I doubt it's going to come down to fatigue. Do we know if Savjz plays a Vengeance Wrath?
I don't think so. It's not very common all the time. Neirea's counting damage, seeing if he can kill him this turn. He would be a little short because the Sludge Belcher just takes too much health away.
If it wasn't for the Sludge Belcher, he definitely would be able to.
What to do?
Yeah, I don't see
there's no
it.
way for him to profitably... You know, he has to use way more than 7 damage on that Sludge Belcher. Because... You know, he has to use at least 9, I think.
He has to overkill it slightly. Now, he's just going to Wild Growth because most likely Lotheb's going to come down. Ugh, Innervate doesn't really do much. I guess
that's basically the same as not Wild Growthing.
Time waits for no one.
I guess it gets one card closer to a bigger threat. Although I don't really know how much more he has. Maybe Sylvanas, if he's running.
I don't think he's running Sylvanas. He is running a Cairn, which he hasn't run yet, but that can be solid. That was at 2.
Uh-oh.
Oh, did he put himself dead to Consecration?
Oh, Neirea could have actually cleared the board, looks like, if he was able to move a little faster. But he was spending a lot of time calculating damage that he ran at a time, so I don't know if that'll be a huge mistake, considering that I don't think there's 2 damage for Savjz to do here. Oh, wait, he does. Oh my god, you're right. Wait, what is going on?
Oh, he just...
Wait, what just happened? Oh my god, I just kind of realized what just happened here. I was like thinking about this Sylvanas draw, but this is exactly the same situation again. How does this keep happening?
Well, this wasn't as much as, you know, not seeing it. It was not being able to mechanically do it, I think. Because he could have attacked those creatures, time just ended, I think. Right, those guys hadn't attacked yet, right?
No, they hadn't. He was supposed to clear it, and now he just lost the game because of it. When it looked like he was able to actually win from that position.
Yeah, it looks like streaming is not the only thing Neirea's computer can't do.
Savjz has won 2 games because his opponents have given him the lethal with the 1 or 2 damage on board.
Neirea napping defeat from the jaws of victory, it seems. Oh, really unfortunate. And this is the kind of mistake that, you know, it's just so silly. And you didn't think anything wrong. You're just like, well, I didn't have time. Neirea's not, yeah. This is a pretty annoying thing to happen. Obviously, it doesn't make you any, less of a player or anything. It's just a very unfortunate thing that happens.
I don't know how Savjz is doing it, but yet he's winning games, and his opponents are kind of fumbling at the goal line. If we were to use an sports analogy here. Now let's move on to the next game and kind of focus on the Miracle versus Paladin matchup. As I thought that game would be going down to a Savage War finish, but I guess it wasn't. Miracle still stacks up very well and nicely against what Paladin does, because Paladin does take its time. But I wonder how cards like maybe Shade of Nax Rammus can impact it. If Savjz picks it up early, does it play any kind of role in helping it win against Miracle Rogue? I have to imagine it does, considering it's quicker than some of the late game cards that it usually runs. But at the same time, Paladin is kind of at the mercy of what the Miracle Rogue can do, especially if they have Auctioneer early in the game.
Yeah, definitely is the kind of thing, you don't apply enough pressure, so Miracle Rogue just gets to do its thing, and you hope your answers are enough, but they probably aren't. And this Paladin deck doesn't run nearly as many, high threats stunts as the Drake deck did. But it has a little bit more pressure sometimes. He also cannot accelerate a big guy into play. But yeah, I really think this favors the Miracle deck.
Okay, Savjz starting to pick up some of his early minions, but wants to prioritize removing on the board.
Yeah, doesn't want to, could have played his own 3-3, but just doesn't want to deal with it, basically. Doesn't have many targets for weapons, so I'm kind of going to do it now.
Alright, well, Neirea's hand's still kind of looking pretty decent. He's got Azure Drake on turn 5 and Gadget Sands with whatever comes out. Most likely Azure Drake to take that hit while drawing a card for him anyways.
Yeah, Azure Drake definitely a very good card in this matchup. Even if it's just going to tie to the weapon, it's going to deal 4 damage and replace itself in a turn where you wouldn't do anything else otherwise. So, pretty good here. Bruce does have his Ledge Belcher, which is a pretty key card in this matchup. It's basically very resilient to anything, and has to get sapped at some point. Very hard to grind through the 3/5 and I mean, he's going to be able to do it now. He has a Sap Eviscerate. Oh, sorry, Shield Eviscerate. But that's...
That token, man. The token always catches you up. I mean, that's why Neirea lost the previous game. It looks like he forgot about the token. That spawn, and as a result, that was the one damage that Savjz needed to end the game. So the Sludge Belcher, once again, outperforming, or sorry, overperforming, and showing why it is just such a strong card to be put in most decks nowadays post Nax Rammus. So Sylvanas right here, by the way, is an interesting decision. Just try to go for immediate pressure and a strong body. But I kind of like it. Paladin needs to be more proactive against what Miracle can do.
Yeah, definitely. And here, unfortunately, I don't think he has a way to kill his own Sylvanas. So, if Neirea manages to conceal his gadget, he knows it's not going to get stolen. But as it is, he might just Shadow Step it.
Yeah, Paladin doesn't have many ways to kill off their own Sylvanas. I mean, obviously you can equality it, but you also kill off most of your opponent's cards, and you're going to be taking a weak creature anyways. Oh, Neirea draws Sap, one card off of what he'd like, and sapping of the Sylvanas would have been a big play, but now has to just kind of abort mission and get this Gadgetzan out of there pronto.
Yeah, it's still fine for him. He has the second Shadow Step here. So it's still representing a decent amount of damage. And the fact that the Actioneer costs 3 next turn means he can play a lot of spells. To a point where he doesn't even care that eventually he dies.
I see.
Ooh, Lottab's gonna put an end to that though. So even if Actioneer costs 3...
Excellent draw. His opponent just Shadow Step his Gadgetzan. Now he can't play spells. Well, he can, but it's gonna cost a lot.
Yeah, his turn is not impressive. Attacks face as well. Doesn't care about the 1/1s. Just wants to get his opponent as close to Leroy Shadow Step Cold Blood range as possible. But so far it's not very close.
Huh. Yeah. I mean, Spellbreaker here allows you to use your small 1/1s to clear board and push. You have the ability to use like build up Shade of Naxxramas, which most likely won't get cleared unless your opponent has a Deadly Poison Blade Flurry. It seems like Savjz has good ways to pressure the Miracle Rogue, which again the Lothab allowed. It just dominated a turn where the Miracle Rogue wanted to go off. In the back of your mind, you're also worried about upcoming turns of burst if your opponent has a slew of cards, which actually with one Shadow Step used, you're not worried about, but just look at the damage still that exists in Neirea's hand. He's got Leroy, Shadow Step, and Cold Blood, plus if he picks up Deadly Poison and Blade Flurry, you can piece that together for 22 damage.
Yeah, definitely. He does have that Holy Light, so he's probably wondering, do I have to use that now? Like, am I in danger of dying this turn? I think the answer is probably no. But, you know, Neirea could draw, you know, another Eviscerate, and he does have that preparation. So... even then, he doesn't have mana to cast everything, but...
Okay. This is another alternative. Don't give away too much of your board. Force him to have Fan of Knives, whatnot.
Yeah, definitely a fine play. You know, apply a lot of pressure here.
Alright, Neirea needs some magic to happen. But I can't... I mean, he's hired the best magician in town, so...
Yeah, whatever happens here is probably gonna include a Blade Flurry of some sort, but...
Yeah, that is a whiff of a draw. Yeah, but how much are you willing to wait on something like the Blade Flurry to come, or the Deadly Poison to come? Ah, and it's finally arrived. That is an important draw.
But now he bounced one of the guys that was gonna die for it. So I guess it's much better than bouncing Lothab, which really does absolutely nothing.
Yeah, this is important so that way you can get damage to potentially within the range of Leroy, and now, all of a sudden, the tables have turned, and that 9 damage is very hard for Savjz to generate.
Yeah, and he doesn't have a way to deal with the board. You know, he doesn't have an equality. So those two guys are just going to stay in play. You know, one of them could get silenced, the other could get... well, now he can shrink both. Like he drew Immunity and other Peacekeeper, but that's going to represent at least 2 damage.
Let me think.
Ugh, and there's no way to use Pyromancer's effect to try to clear off the minions. This is starting to take a turn for the worse for Savjz. The Paladin deck, it can't really fight back as quickly, and just look at how explosive 2 turns with this Gadgetzan Auctioneer once again can still make this deck.
Let me think.
Yeah. Savjz is in trouble here. You know, all his answers, you know, the best he can do, I think, is just, you know, like, kind of neuter both minions. But that's basically a turn span where he did absolutely nothing. You know, there's no way for him to answer the board and put a threat in play. He has to choose one or the other.
Alright, well, he's going to heal up. That's his best course of action.
Yeah.
And leave it up to his opponent to have the damage, which we see we have 16 in hand, plus the 2 on board. So he's missing a little bit here, but if he picks up another way to do damage, could be the way to end the game.
Yeah, and no silence on the gadget, so it's still active. You know, he can still draw a lot of cards from it. I don't know how many he has 5.
Well, he couldn't have silenced it and played Humility. Oh man, Deadly Poison. He had it at the beginning of the turn. I wonder if that was enough. Oh, second Fan of Knives kills off the Shade of Naxxramas, though. That's kind of unfortunate. Lights out.
Yeah, but no more cards in Neirea's deck. Only 1 left, I believe. So the moment he plays a spell, he'll be out of things to do. So perhaps not silencing the gadget was, you know, wasn't a byproduct of not having enough mana. Perhaps that was just by default. He just wanted the gameplay to limit Neirea's spell possibilities.
Ooh. Well, now it's starting to get a little interesting. Because Savjz, if he drew like a heal and a clear, maybe he could have done something, but it doesn't look like there's anything he can do. Because there's enough damage right here with what's represented on board plus Leroy. And you can't, I mean, silencing this Gadgetzan doesn't turn it back into a 1-4, it turns it back to a 4-4 because it loses both Humility and the Cold Blood effect.
Oh yeah, and you actually enable him to cast a lot of spells after that, so... Yeah, I don't see a way out for Savjz here.
All
By the way,
right, so it looks like
you-
game 3 is going to go to Neirea, and he's going to take the series lead, taking out the Paladin deck, but we didn't really expect Paladin to be the best against this kind of deck. It's just a little too fast for it.
Yeah, I would say Paladin is a little too uninteractive and like unable to apply any pressure. And that's exactly the kind of deck Neirea wants to play against. You have to see what weapon does Savjz have to maybe beat this Miracle Rogue deck.
He has his Druid, if I recall correctly, and that Druid deck should be able to put on a lot of pressure early on, and maybe use Savage Roar to finish the game. It does kind of depend on the start. I'm always kind of mixed on this Druid deck because I always feel like sometimes there's those few games where you get the wrong end, you get those Haunted Creepers and Echoing Oozes on turn 6 and 7 draws, and you're just stuck with Cairn and Spectre Knight on turn 1. And those are the games where you just actually are powerless to do anything.
Yeah, and this could be a matchup where removing one Force of Nature for one Black Knight could actually hurt Savjz a lot. Because Black Knight does absolutely nothing, and Force of Nature, is maybe one of your ways to win the game.
Oh, that's a good point. Good point for sure. And there are cards like Spectral Knight that can be very impactful given how difficult it is for Rogue to deal with. But overall, I would say that this Druid deck stands a great chance. I'm kind of downplaying a little bit, but by no means should you underestimate it. It's very good, and I think we're about to discover what it can do in game number 4.
Yeah, definitely. Though, yeah, I'm giving the edge to Miracle Rogue here, but Druid deck could definitely still win. Because unlike the previous Druid deck, and unlike Paladin, it actually applies pressure. Which is one of the most important things for Miracle when you play against Miracle Rogue. So, Neirea does have one of the best openings to deal with pressure, which is coin into SI7. Which will generally kill your opponent's only creature, not in this case, we'll kill half of it, but kills your opponent's only creature and leaves a body in play that's bigger than whatever they're going to play next turn. So, definitely what you're looking for in order to draw with Rogue is that coin SI7.
Mm-hmm. And he immediately sees that it's also that aggressive type of Druid, that it's not going to be a ramp Druid that's been sort of popular in this tournament. Definitely more popular than this token Druid.
Yeah. I think there are only 2 people playing the token Druid, Colento and Savjz, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh,
wait,
if
you're watching
Kibler
this?
was also playing it as well.
Oh yeah, right. So that's apology. I'm probably butchering your name every single time, but I know I probably say a different thing every time I spell it. But
Oh, Savjz? Don't worry. Everybody does, including his own teammates. Artosis
probably
mispronounced
used
Savjz for a long time. Call him Savages. And Savjz like the nicest guy in the world. How can he be a savage?
Ooh, so now the Shade doesn't attack. So what does he not want to expose it into? I guess, backstab plus an attack from the weapon, or even SA7.
Yeah, basically the cards that were just revealed this turn. He's like, well, I'm just gonna nope out of this one and just save it. And there's no way really for the Rogue to kind of just deal with this. It's the same effect as the Spectre Knight, except as if it was frozen, it couldn't attack. It's just Rogue can't actually kill it without mass AoE, and it's gonna be really difficult. Not to mention that he can use it as his guarantee insurance to kill off Gadgets and Auctioneer if the situation called for it.
Yeah, but I'm guessing next turn it attacks. It's going to a point where, he has to be eviscerated plus attack to die. And that's probably as good as it's going to get. Because unlike Spectre Knight, your opponent, if they can remove it, that's because they don't have to. Because it's not attacking. So, yeah, I definitely like attacking with it this turn.
All right, now Neirea has quite the tall order on his hands. Well, it's going to have to return the Shade Nash Ramus and remove that damage. But he's using a lot of his spells, and this is one of the downsides of Miracle Rogue. If you don't have Auctioneer, your hand could run thin very easily, and you're still taking damage every single turn because there's just way too many minions on the board just sticking and attacking you every single turn.
Yeah, I mean, that is the characteristic of this Druid deck. Its minions are very hard to remove. I mean, look at what Savjz has right now. It has 2 guys that replace themselves, another one in his hand, one that, can't be attacked. A lot of very resilient minions.
Alright, well, a kind of a dead-end draw once again. Lotheb is too heavy on the mana curve because he only had 4 remaining from the Fan of Knives. Now Savjz getting closer to being able to just kill his opponent. Doesn't even necessarily need something like just Savage Roar. He's got Swipe, and he's just counting down ways to kill his opponent over the next couple of turns.
Yeah, I mean, Neirea has access to Swipe and Keeper, so that's 6 damage on top of whatever else he has in play. So he only has to keep 4 damage in play to win this game. And, you know, when his opponent is on 8 mana and he has 26 life to work with, he has to think he's not dying. So that will require some sort of board clearing by Neirea, which is going to be pretty tough, considering, you know, there's the 4/4 guy.
Alright, Sap will keep him not alive, actually, because Swipe's still 9 mana, and that's exactly the damage that he needs to end this game. So it looks like Savjz able to use the aggression, and with the combination of Miracle Rogue not being able to get something like Agitated Auctioneer will end up being his downfall here.
Yep, for sure. Yeah, you know, there's 0 casting cost spells are very good, but if you're not replacing them with someone else, with something else, you one out of a hand very quickly. You know, you just play 3 spells in a turn and then you have nothing left. That is a problem with the Miracle Rogue deck.
All right, now a bigger problem. Yeah.
Yeah.
Now with a bigger problem for this Druid deck are big taunted creatures that you can't deal with, which a deck like Handlock runs, or even the Ramp Druid. So Savjz is running into one of his worst matchups. I would say the Miracle Rogue is one of his better matchups for sure, because you can be aggressive. But you don't always have the luxury against a deck like this, which can hit you with Mountain Giant taunts, and you're not running BGH. So you either have to rely on Keeper of the Grove to silence, or you just have way too much damage that your opponent, it doesn't really matter. Or also your opponent could not have any taunt givers for Molten Giants too. That could also be a case.
That's pretty unlikely though, considering, you know, they draw so many cards. And even if they don't have them immediately, they have Sledge Bashers and stuff, so they can draw into that. But, you know, here is where replacing a Force of Nature for a Black Knight pays off, you know. It didn't hurt him in its bad matchup, but now he gets the benefit of it in his good matchup. So this card could be huge. It could be the best card in his deck for this matchup.
Oh, it could be huge indeed. Let's go into Game 5 and see if Savjz can make the comeback against Neirea and give him his first loss of the tournament. And, you know, Savjz is still undefeated as well. So if he wins this, I believe he's also in a prime position to advance top 2 in the group, and it'll be very difficult for Hyped to advance. He needs to win very convincingly in his next few series. Although he hasn't played his head-to-head to Savjz yet, so that could be his edge. Either way, Savjz wants to win this one to guarantee him a good position to advance in top 2.
Yeah, for sure. And, you know, if Savjz wins here and Brian Kibler loses to Hype, then we might see a 3-way tie, and then we're going to have to see how that works out.
Now, one thing that Handlock always has at his disposal is to fight a little aggressively with cards like Ancient Watcher early on. This is kind of a unique situation where you don't often see Handlock doing it, but when given the situation, he doesn't have any 4-drops clearly in his hand. It might be his best course of action, considering that he's got nothing else to do, and life tapping against an aggressive deck might be suicide. You might take way too much damage from trying to get the cards that you need to drop on turn 4.
Yeah, for sure. Though, not really a great start for Neirea. As good as it looks to have a 4/5 attacking on turn 3, I don't think it's what he wants to be doing in this matchup. He knows he's not going to race. You know, it's very unlikely that he races. Though he does have the Mortar College to finish off the Shade. You know, if Savjz's plan is to grow the Shade into a 5/5 to attack into the 5/4, into 4/5, Neirea does have the Mortar College to finish it off. So that's one thing in his favor.
Doesn't look like to use Wrath more aggressively here and try to go for the trade, or I think so. I think this is too much of a dent into what you're trying to do here, and then the 1/1 can still contest. Not to mention you still have Keeper of the Groves, so for like Twilight Drake that comes out next turn, for example.
Yeah, no, that's it's like a decent enough course of action. Ooh, so uses the Mortar card immediately, so not going to be able to remove that shade in the very next turn. You know, because it's going to grow to a 5/5, and so far it only deals 4, so...
Yeah, this might be the time for Savjz to strike. And he is going to use his Keeper of the Grove to start pushing out a little bit more damage. Keep his 1/1 alive.
Yeah, and he can play low tap now, but by the time low tap gets to attack, the shade will be 6/6.
Yeah.
So he's going to eat a Siphon Soul. But, you know, what if he just attacks the 5/5 with his 6/6? Then he's going to have to Siphon Soul a 6/1? Or I guess he has Ancient Watcher, so he could just Ancient Watcher plus Shadow Flame, if it comes to that.
Yeah, Savjz has to make a tough decision of, does he want to give up a lot of health and make himself vulnerable to, I don't know, Hellfire or just like you said, Shadow Flame? Or does he kind of clear his board and make himself open to Siphon Soul? And the bad news is that Neirea has both in case his opponent chooses either of his options. Or he could also ignore Lotheb. I forgot about that play, if he chooses to do it. But I highly advise against that.
Yeah, it's that situation where, you know, if he floods the board, they all get killed, and if he only leaves a big shade, he gets Siphon Souled. So there are no good options for Savjz here.
Man, Lotheb's pretty sick, let me tell you.
Yeah. Okay, so chooses to, you know, run into Shadow Flame. Wow. Which, you know, it makes sense because his opponent has already used one Ancient Watcher. So he has to have the second one and the Shadow Flame, and people have been shying away from Hellfire, and even if he does have Hellfire, you still keep the 2 Keepers. But no, he had, you know, the perfect combination. And now with 2 Siphon Souls in Neirea's hand, this might spell trouble for Savjz, because his like 2 guys are just going to get killed.
Oh, check this out. Savjz keeps drawing his Battlecry minions like Black Knight when it's not going to be applicable. And he wants to save it for the inevitable taunts that come out. And then this Twilight Drake just comes into the hand of Neirea when the Twilight Drakes already have been used. So that's another good spot. And he's even picked up a Taunter too with Defender of Argus. So the hand's already starting to pick up for Neirea.
Yeah, now, does he use the hero power to put himself at combo range? He decides to do it. And, you know, once he does that, I don't think he cares about going down to 12 or even 10. You know, 14 is the key number. And, you know, by using it once, he says, okay, I'm going to let the combo be lethal. And I'm going to draw a bunch more cards in exchange for that. So get to play the Black Knight throwing his Ledge Belcher, which normally would be very exciting, but in this matchup is a bit of a letdown. You know, it's probably one of your worst targets. But recognize that he has to apply some pressure. You know, his hand is a bunch of blanks. So he has to deal some damage.
Wow, 4 great draws here for Neirea. He has ways to taunt up this Azure Drake. He's got Sludge Belch to back it up.
Yeah.
He can even take out this Black Knight and Soulfire it, but he could risk discarding a very important Taunter. Oh, Defender of Argus.
The thing is that he has 2 very important Taunters in his hand. You know, he has one guy that has Taunt by itself and a Taunt Giver, and 2 Siphon Souls. So I don't think he's super worried.
Okay. Now,
you know, he has the ability to kill whatever his opponent plays next.
Now, from Neirea's point of view, he also has the ability to be aggressive because Alex Strazza can come out next turn, assuming his opponent doesn't have anything. But most likely, you're going to be using it defensively because 15 is slightly outside of the range. So, as much as it might open up possibilities, you have to also be careful not to overextend.
Yeah, I would expect this turn to be a Siphon Soul.
He can't afford it though. It costs a lot.
Oh yeah, because of Lotheb. Oh okay, never mind.
Ooh, Twilight Drake just fits the curve with the Sludge Belcher pretty nicely.
Yeah, he does. And that guarantees he's not going to die to the combo. It's just way too many toughness of creatures in play. But that was poorly phrased, but...
Gosh, Savjz seems like he's hitting just way too many Taunters.
Yeah, and we're at the point that you mentioned, you know, this deck is going to be drawing those Echo Uses and Spiders in the late game, and they're not going to do much. So it kind of has to draw its things in the right order, and this is definitely not the right order for Savjz. You know, he wanted that in turn 2, not in turn 15.
Meanwhile, he's not sitting on the most comfortable health either. There's going to be these Twilight Drakes attacking every turn, and it's going to be difficult to hold them off. Not to mention that his opponent could also pick up Leroy, so I'm leaning towards Neirea to go 3-0 in groups here and win Game 5 unless Savjz can turn it around in the next turn or two. But with the cards in hand, it's going to be really tricky. The best he can do is just remove a minion off the board.
Yeah, I mean, what can he do? What can he draw? You know, it probably has to start with Ancient of Lore into something good, because only one card is not going to be enough to beat Neirea here.
Okay, goes for a swipe on the healthier minion instead of the lower health minion, so that way it can't get an easy trade with Echoing Ooze. But then it's a little bit more resilient to the other ones, but more resilient to Savage Roar and Force of Nature. So Savjz trying to play a little bit slower, it looks like. He's saying it's most likely going to be the trade battles, and I can't really afford to just swipe the biggest target in hopes that I'm going to have the ability to do it. Now, Alexstrasza does come out here, and it's going to be the biggest minion on board. How does Savjz respond to it? He needs Ancient of Lore now here, PV.
Yeah, he does. And he draws the next best thing, a 1/2 spider.
Not really at all. That's pretty awful. And like we were saying, just like gosh, you just can't really do much in this scenario.
Yeah, I'm just waiting for the zombie chow here. Yesterday, yeah, we saw there was a player. I think it was Firebad. Who every single time he just, you know, in those insane top deck wars, just drew his one zombie chow and did nothing in the very late game.
Right, and it's Ramp Druid, which usually has such a high quality of dense draws where there's big minions, and you just draw the 1 mana cost creature. Well, oh my goodness. Leroy makes him 1 damage off lethal here, but I think you're comfortable enough to tap.
Yeah, it's kind of greedy tapping there, but you can't really fault him for that. But, I mean, why are you hoping to draw? That's better than what you already had to play. I don't know.
Just a way to kill him. Maybe Power Overwhelming. Maybe Soulfire number 2, Hellfire. Any kind of way to do extra damage so that way Leroy can kill them this turn. But, you know, you just don't know if you don't ask. That's kind of the policy here. And Savjz only has Savage Roar and Innervates, so it looks like he can't take this series, which means Neirea's going to go 3-0 in groups. And the apologies are coming out. But guess what, PB? He didn't mean them at all. He was being sarcastic.
Yeah, he probably didn't. That was the first time he doesn't say well played immediately after his opponent's dead, so he probably is a little bit sorry.
All right, well, congrats to Neirea as he advances to first place in this group very decisively. And Kalento now has kind of a competition here for some of the most dominant performances in VGVN in group stages. Considering that it's kind of hard to go 3-0 in groups. The field of players are very strong overall, so to go 3-0 against Savjz, Brian Kibler, and Hyped, I think is a very good accomplishment, and people need to be careful of this guy.
Yeah, for sure. So now we get to see Hype versus Kibler, which is the match that will define whether, Hype can actually make it or not.
That's true.
Kibler can't make it anymore, I don't think.
With his record, I'm gonna say it's highly unlikely. Unless he 3-0s Savjz. No, I think Hyped won 2 games, right? So I think it's gonna be really unlikely for him to advance. Most likely he's out here. And then Savjz, of course, and Hyped still have to go head-to-head, in which case that can also determine the second place of the group and just the raw record. So we're going to take a break, guys. When we come back, we're going to have more from VGVN 3. Find out more about your ways to enter for your chance to win the Zeus Mini Cyberpower PC by going to vgvn.onenationsagamer.com or type giveaway in the chat and click on the link to just subscribe for the newsletter and find out more about this organization trying to fight for voters' rights in the USA. So check it out, and we're going to be right back in just a few.